Today on Homeworthy, we're stepping inside the homes of incredible textile artists. First, Rebecca Vizard takes us through her stunning Louisiana Delta home, where her vast collection of rich textiles, artwork, and family heirlooms come together in a beautiful celebration of artistry and family. Then, Sarah Gibson Wiley gives us a tour of her 1960s ranch in Richmond, Virginia, where she seamlessly blends her interior design expertise with her love for textile art, creating a warm and inviting home. Next, we visit Peter Diascali's farmhouse in Delhi, India, where vibrant textiles, art, and bold colors create a maximalist haven full of stories from his travels. Enjoy. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Rebecca. Welcome to our home in the Louisiana Delta on Lake Bruin. Come on in. Hi, I'm Rebecca Vizard, and this is my sweet rescue beagle, Lulu. And we live in the Delta, in the middle of nowhere, between Natchez, Mississippi and Vicksburg, on the other side of the Mississippi River. So we are in the Louisiana Delta on Lake Bruin, near a town called St. Joseph. And I actually grew up here, and I tried to escape. I thought I wanted to live in the big city, but accidentally I ended up back here, and it's been a good thing. When we first moved back here, I stayed quite frustrated all the time because I remember going to the grocery store and they didn't have limes, and I just had a meltdown one day and just said, "It looks like a lemon, but it's green. Can you please get them?" Because I was drinking gin and tonics at the time, and you can't have that without a lime. So anyway, what I can say is, since Amazon Prime has come around, I love living here because I don't have to worry about running out of printer ink, or I can get whatever I need in 2 days. It's incredible. And honestly, living here and not being able to get everything you want has made us a lot more resourceful. We now grow the vegetables that we can't get at the grocery store, and we love doing that. And then we figured out it's even better than whole food to grow your own. So living here, we have adapted and we've learned a lot, and I think it's really enhanced our lives. And I would have never believed that. I really was pouting the first 4 years we were here. But it's like I say, I love it now. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. Well, once we moved back, and I figured out that my dad was so happy having his grandchildren here. My husband was so happy hunting and fishing and playing golf. And I could tell my children were so happy here, and I could see it was going to be a good, healthy place to raise children. We decided to build this house, which was a huge statement that we're staying now. So we built this house in 1988. We moved in 89. And so when we designed the house, I worked with Michael Carbine in New Orleans and William Saunier. And it was quite an undertaking because I was 29 years old. And we said, we're trying to build our forever house on hopefully not our forever budget. And they got it, and they were great. And so we built a wonderful big shell. And every year we just added something. It's turned out after, from 89 to now, we've been here quite a while. So we've had a lot of fun projects, and the house is not quite finished, but almost there. This is the part of the house we call the breezeway. The original house is over there. We added this space and the studio because my business was starting to make our house quite a mess. So Now this is where I work every day. This has been an area, I love having all my textile books close to the studio because if I have to research something, I usually can find the book. And I have learned a lot from all of these books. And yet, I guess my knowledge of textiles has come from flea markets, museums, books, and my mentor who just died at 102 in France. And she taught me a lot because she taught textiles in Florence, Italy before World War II and then moved to Paris where I met her. But anyway, my books, I don't know what I'd do if the house caught on fire. I would be throwing books out to everybody because I've collected them from museums all over the world and elsewhere. The other thing in the breezeway I really love is how this fig ivy vine came in. And it came in through one spot kind of in the corner. And it used to green up in the spring and then sometimes it would die down a little in the winter. But one time I was having my gardener cut back some things because the fig ivy was growing up the side of the house. And I said, cut everyone back except this one vine right here. And I pointed to it and I put a little dab of Sharpie marker on it. And of course he cut it. And so now we have this dead vine in here. But I kind of like it. I'm having a hard time thinking about taking it down. And my husband actually is very glad it's not growing anymore because he thought it was going to take over the whole place. Now let's go to the kitchen. Y'all follow me. We'll go through the breezeway to the original part of the house, down the hallway of memories, crazy pictures of the family. Welcome to my kitchen. Really, my husband is the chef in the house, and it's kind of crazy, but our number one seller in our business is the seasoning salt, which is hysterical because it was such an accident that I put it in and somebody bought it and gave it to people all over the country. And so we finally had to put it on the website and now we sell tons of it. But he's the chef and he's really kind of a scientist. And he just makes up things all the time. He doesn't need recipes and he chops the herbs and then whatever he doesn't use in our meal he throws in this bowl. So every batch is a little bit different. And it's really fun. When people are hanging out here on weekends, everybody tends to like turn it. And so it's very, I guess it's kind of cathartic to sit here and turn salt. But this table is one of the first pieces I bought for the house. And it came from a great shop in Baton Rouge called Fireside Antiques. And the cool thing about the table is it has all these different storage places. It came from a restaurant in Paris, and it even has an area that's kind of that was dug out on the end where they said they had a meat grinder. So the funny thing too was our kitchen was not complete, and I bought this just knowing it would fit. I just knew it would. And my husband, when they saw it, they said, "There's no way that's going to fit." I'm like, "Sweetheart, I promise you, it is going to fit." And we brought it in, and it fit perfectly. And actually, my husband said, good, because there were 4 men that came and it took my husband and 6 men to move it. And he goes, good, because it's not leaving. But anyway, the other thing I really love is our sink. But what I really love is if I have a dinner party and it's too late, you can hide the dishes on this side. And this side is really a deep piece. So you can hide a lot in there. Anyway, and we have art by friends, and I love being here, looking out the window when you're washing the dishes, and sometimes we have wildlife that comes up, and occasionally we'll have a bear that gets a little close, and I can't stand when I look down the road and see a bear. It's a little frightening. I do get the dogs in. But so far they haven't gotten too close, but it's kind of like Wild Kingdom out here. Well, while we spend the most time in the kitchen, we did spend every evening sitting around this table when the kids were growing up. And this was our nighttime routine. And it was I just can't believe that I was able to raise a family that ate dinner around a table every night. This is a wonderful sculpture by Bradley Sabin, who is it's so incredible. And this is another piece from Fireside. Actually, both of these are. And I've loved this. I've used this in so many ways. At one time it was our bar. Another time I used it in the big room for our books. It's a very versatile piece. The art, this is a Hayes Friedman that I just love. I love the mood of it. As I said, I was an art major, so I do love the art. And these are two pieces that I bought at a flea market for $25, and I loved them. And now when you find them, they're a lot more expensive. But those were early purchases for this house. The fabric is so fun. I kept thinking I had too much wood in here and it was driving me crazy, and I was either going to paint that or paint this table. And my friend Jeanette Whitson, who has Garden Variety Design, had this fabric on some of her chairs, and so I got her to order some for me, and it kind of cooled it off in here, and I think made it okay to have this much wood. So once I did that, I'm not as anxious about painting everything, but I may someday, I don't know. One of the things I love about the layout of our home is that we can use this place to eat, or we can set all our food out and open the doors and go to the porch, which is the place where we really hang out. And I would love to show you the porch and show you where we have many meals out here. The funny thing about the architectural style, when I was talking to the architects, I said I wanted a New Orleans style farmhouse, lake house, hunting lodge. And they kind of laughed and said, well, yeah, good luck with that. And as it turned out, that's really kind of what we got. And we used a lot of old elements from old buildings around the area, and it kind of feels like it's been here forever. I've ended up with quite a mix. It's sort of traditional farmhouse style, but we do have really high ceilings, which kind of is the New Orleans influence. I've gradually decorated, and I love vintage and antique things. I love things with a history and things that will tell a story, basically. And I love textiles, as you know. I would say I've gradually collected things, and the other thing is I was an art major in college, and so I really love art, and I really love contemporary art. So it's kind of a mix of antique textiles, contemporary art, a few traditional pieces of art. I don't know, I'm just whatever inspires me comes to the house, and it seems to work. I don't know why, but it does. And this is our screened-in porch that I really love. It's funny, when we first built the house, we didn't do the screens because I thought, well, it'll impede the view of the lake. Well, we probably screened this in about 10 years ago, and this is where we live now. We live either in the kitchen or out here. And most of our meals are eaten on this porch because, we have 75-degree Christmases a lot of times. And so it's more fun to have a dinner party out here than in the house for some reason. Everybody likes eating outside. My husband and I hang out here a lot in the afternoon, evenings. He will grill on a little baby green egg, and we'll have a little wine, and we just talk about the day, and this is just magical out here. We're gonna have some company tonight, so I went ahead and set the table the way I would for company. And what's great about this table, we got these other two tables that work as a bar at the end, but also if we have more seating we need, we can just pull the tables to the end, and we can seat 16 people out here. And it is really fun. Everybody wants to eat on the porch. And sometimes when it's even a little too cool, we'll just I have a lot of Cantha blankets inside, and we'll just wrap in those, and everyone will eat out here. And the people who haven't been here before, I always let them sit on this side, because usually at night the moon is glistening on the lake, and I love for people to see that. It's just really special. Sometimes we do candles, but sometimes there's a breeze and we can't use candles. But I love these because you can turn the lights on. They recharge, and these actually were a gift from a bunch of friends who were up here, and the electricity went off at their house. So they called, and I was out of town, and I said, well, just use our house. And so they were having a dinner party out here, and they couldn't figure out how to turn the lights on the porch. And so next thing I know, I get a box of these lamps. They said everybody was eating with their iPhones over their plates. So that will not happen again. And this is one of my favorite vases because it's so easy to make an arrangement. And the nice thing is when you're sitting at a dinner table, you can see over it. I carry these in my shop, even though we're out right now, but I just love the design of that. And they've been around for years. I just think they're classics. And they don't stress you out trying to make an arrangement. Anyway. And the zinnias from the yard. You will see a lot of zinnias. The plates actually were my mother's, my parents' wedding presents. And these are spode, and it's a pattern called geisha that they don't make anymore. And when I was getting married, I told Mama, I said, I can't find any plates that I like better. And she said, well, look, I never use those. Those are my fancy plates. And finally, I just decided she had something like 18. So I just decided they've become our everyday plates. And I love them. And they make me think of my parents being young and in love and getting married. One of the other best things about the screened-in porch is it's right off our living room. And when we have parties for more than 16, I mean, we've had as many as 30 or 40 here, and everybody ends up being able to sit for dinner because we open up the living room. Well, hi, Birdie. This is our living room, and I love this red color. And the funny thing about this color, I think this was about the 10th time I painted it. I couldn't get the color right in here for anything. And finally I got a red, and I really wasn't happy with it. And my dear friend Ann Conley said, B, I think this color's just too aggressive for you. And so I went, you're right, that's the problem. So I mixed up a glaze, having been an art major. And the funny thing was, I hired a high school student, and he painted on the wall, and I came along behind him and wiped it off. And it just toned down the red where it reads as red, but it's really kind of a pink. And the cool thing, I think, is that it doesn't look feminine. You know, I wanted a place that my husband was real happy in. But it's a pink, but not a pinky pink, not a girly pink. And the other thing I realized is how much I like mixing all the reds now, because it's got different shades of reds in there. So it kind of goes from an orange to a pink. And for instance, when I bought these chairs at an antique shop, I thought, oh, I'm going to have to recover them. And I brought them in the room, and I went, you know, they kind of work. And as well as this pink piece that I got from Watkins Culver in Houston. And I thought it was going to go in the living room. And when they brought it in, I thought it looked great with the walls. And I just didn't believe it when I bought it. One of the things I'm learning the longer I'm playing with color is that, you know, reds and pinks and oranges can all kind of blend together, particularly when you have a big eclectic mix with all kinds of things in there. I love these birds. These came from a shop in Houston called Area. And I actually bought these for a client. And when I brought them home, my husband said, he can't have them, I want them. And so I went, oops, all right. So we kept them. As I've said before, I love the way our house melds with nature, and I love bringing in natural pieces. This is a great example of a stump from an old cypress tree. And I just think it's phenomenal. It's so architectural. It makes you realize that really nature is probably one of the best architects or artists there is. I love the way the colors in the gold kind of go with the wood in that. I love the way our dogs just get everywhere in the house and feel very comfortable. I also love this chandelier. I'll have to tell you more about my projects, but this one we called a cork delier, and it's made out of wine corks, and I hire at-risk kids to help me make all these chandeliers. So I'm going to show you another one in just a bit, but these projects are just dear to my heart because they are helping the needy in our area, and they have fun, and they get very excited about making their own money. I try to catch kids when they are about 16 or 17 before they sometimes get sucked into the welfare system or something. But once they get that little itch and love making their own money, they tend to get jobs and do well. my first group of 7 kids, 6 of the 7 all have done well, have gone on, and they're all working and good, productive citizens and happy. So it's just one of my favorite things that's come out of living here. The things in here that I find the most interesting, the table, the coffee table here is from Mac Maison in New Orleans. And the legs are from the old Woolworth building in New Orleans. That was part of their balcony. And the top is an old limestone piece that was used for making lithographs. That was also an early purchase for the house. The other thing, I love this particular artist, Damon Matsuo. He lives in New Orleans, and my friend Ann Conley has an art gallery in Baton Rouge, and I walked in one day and just said, Ann, I have to have that. And it was the first piece she had gotten from him. And I just loved it because I love the movement, I love the structure. And then I realized it's a man holding a baby and the woman's pregnant. And I thought, well, it could represent my family. So it's pretty special. Then I've just collected a lot of different art from different people. I have a couple of Hunt Sloanums. I love, this is actually a Picasso, and it's got a different drawing on the back. I love art. I can't seem to get enough art. And I don't mind mixing the really valuable with the kind of fun. One piece my nephew did when he was in high school. And then we've got serious artists. And this is my friend Bill Joyce, who is a famous cartoonist. He did the characters in Toy Story for Buzz Lightyear and Woody, and he's done several movies that have been pretty successful. Well, this room, originally when we built the house, we didn't have a lot of money, so this room wasn't even finished. And I mean, we just had a bare light bulb hanging there. My children learned how to ride their bikes in here, and they learned how to rollerblade in here. I mean, there was one sofa in the middle of the room with a little table, and they would just go around it like the NASCAR drivers. But anyway, the room just kind of evolved. I mean, we knew we needed a bigger space for eating, and the dining table actually came from my aunt, and it seats 16. It has a lot of leaves, but the funny thing about it was all the leaves were different colors of wood. And now I'm so sorry I painted the table because I thought it kind of looks like striped wood in the middle. But now I look back on it, I think I can just picture them. Well, they needed another link, and they just went out and cut whatever tree and made these different pieces to go in the table. And I don't know why I didn't think that was cool at the time. But now I may strip that table one day. But I do want to show you the funniest thing here, the hat box, the hat basket. This is where a lot of fun goes on. And whenever I can find vintage hats at a good price, because they get way overused, we pulled them out. And it's hysterical how everyone seems to take on a different persona when they put their hat on. And the other funny thing is Michael and I will be in the kitchen cooking, and the party started when all of a sudden someone pops around the door and they go, and we look at each other and we go, oh my gosh. And of course it happens every weekend, so we pretend like it's the first time we've ever seen that. But everybody seems to really get going with the hats. Let's go upstairs and mind this. We originally used this for the kids to keep them corralled in here, and now we use it for the dogs when they get wet, so they can't go upstairs and jump in our beds. Let's go. Welcome to the bedroom. This is obviously one of my favorite spots because I'd love to get in bed and read a good book. But we love having this porch off the bedroom and the screen, so when the weather's really nice, we leave the doors open. As a matter of fact, one morning we were lying in bed and all of a sudden we heard this huge it was so loud, it felt like the house was shaking. And I was horrified. I thought maybe, there was a bomb or something was happening, a plane crashing. And my husband and I jump up and we run out. And evidently it was the beginning of a bass fishing contest. And like right at 6 a.m., every boat went, and it just, everybody's house, I think, vibrated. There were so many boats on the lake. But that was also early when we moved here. Now we sleep through it. We don't even notice it. This is really a great, our bedspread is old. We made it out of old sheets. Of course, I love putting a long pillow on a bed. This is as a matter of fact, this is the easiest thing to sell to men because men hate beds with like 10 different pillows on it. So you just have your pillows you used to lean back on and one decorative pillow. So if anybody wants one of those, that's how you convince your husband you're going to get one. Anyway, and once again, I love the Suzanis over here. This is a really amazing piece. We now are representing a man from Uzbekistan who produces the most beautiful Suzanis on real silk, not on polyesters or bamboos, and the threads are all silk. And he just does an incredible job. And I can't tell you, we must have, I don't know, at least 150 Suzanis in our stock right now. And this is one of my favorite pieces in the room because really for a bedside piece, it's got so many nooks and crannies that you can put your, your cuticle cream or your lip stuff and all your little nighttime things right there. And I actually found this on eBay and I was so nervous to buy it, but it came from California and I talked to the guy and he just said he was redoing his house and going all modern. And I just am tickled to have this piece. It holds a lot. The other thing I can't wait to show you are these curtains. When I was early on the Neiman's trip, when I was buying things for the Neiman's shop, I found this beautiful tablecloth, and the amazing thing was it was already cut in half, and I thought, what a shame, that big, beautiful piece. And it's got this amazing ribbon work and embroidery, and I was about to cut it up to make pillows, and then I started thinking I needed drapery in my bedroom. And so I just took a smaller piece and added it to some fun silk. And I mean, I think it just transformed the room to have this. Now, my very favorite thing in the room is my line and witch and wardrobe moment. But I saw this in France at a famous artist's atelier. When I asked to use the restroom in French, they pointed at the armoire, and I thought, how did I screw that up? Anyway, I opened their armoire, and it was the cutest little powder room. So for years, I looked for the right piece, and this has added so much to our bathroom because we have so much more storage now, and it just makes me feel magical when I walk in and out of here. I think something good's going to happen. But we have a great space in here, and another thing that is one of my favorite tricks I used to do with interior design, when you have a great view, you hate to have curtains going to the top. So I always have little shutters made like this so that you can have privacy, but you can still see the stars. So at night, if I get in my tub and read a book and the stars are out, it's just, once again, it's my happy place. So. And this is our porch, our screened porch up here. We love it, as I've said, because the breeze can go through our room and we hear all the nature sounds and the birds. I love this tree out here. It looks like a bonsai. It's been my favorite tree. For the longest time, that was one of the biggest ones, and now these are catching up, and I'm almost sad that I don't have such a good view anymore. This is an old swing, it was a daybed from France, and we just converted it into a porch swing. One of the funny things about this porch is we didn't have two doors, but years ago, my son, when he was about 2, locked himself into our bedroom, and I was totally panicked because he was 2. The key came out because it was one of those old-fashioned locks. We couldn't get in. We were just completely panicked. So I climbed out that window, and we didn't have the door here, so I had to like go along the edge, like, I don't know, Batman or something, and then come in the door here, and thank goodness this door was open so I could get in. And he was having a blast in the bathroom, just digging through all the cabinets underneath and pulling everything out. And I'm like, no telling what he would have gotten into if I hadn't been able to do that. But we love being able, once again, to open up our house to nature. And this helps a lot. And this is a nice contemplative place sometimes to sit and read a book. And this was my son Ross's room, which of course didn't look like this when he lived here. But we love, it was such a small room, and it was perfect for him. But we always tried to make it work with it. We didn't have much room for furniture. And we stayed in a hotel one time in France that we were laughing. My husband actually walked in. He goes, "You got to be kidding me," because there was about 2 feet all the way around the bed. But they had these built-in pieces on the sides of the bed and places to hang your clothes inside. And it turned out that it was perfect, and we were very comfortable in there. And so we said, while we were in Paris, we said, this is what we have to do in Ross's room. So this worked out great. We love it because you can plug your cell phone in the side, and there's plenty of storage. And then I love the curtains in here because, I love so many different textiles, and particularly a lot of Eastern things. So this is a Elizabeth Hamilton textile. And of course, I loved having the Fortuny in here because Fortuny is one of my favorite fabrics. It's hard to beat a good Fortuny. And then the other thing that's so fun from being up here is it feels like you're in a tree house when you look outside, because we have these giant oak trees that are right in front of the house and really surround the house. And all of our guests love it. And one problem is all of our dogs love it too. And so they love to get on every bed in here and watch out the window and look for squirrels. And so I have to keep a lock on the outside to keep all the rooms closed, and because all the doors are very old. And so when our guests come, they usually go, "Now what is that hook lock on the door for?" They think we're going to lock them in their room. But anyway, it's just to keep the dogs from, they've learned how to open doors. They're very clever. Speaking of, that couldn't have been better timing. See what I mean? And most of our guests are very dog friendly and actually bring their dogs with them when they come. But every now and then somebody doesn't want any dog hair on their bed. Okay, Lulu, you ready to leave? Are you ready to leave? Let's go show them something else. One other thing great about the porch is we have all the doggy doors. So the dogs go in and out all day long. And I don't know if you can hear the birds, but they're magical right now. I want to show you the playhouse. This is the building I was talking about that we moved here after Katrina. We nestled it here in these big live oaks. And at night we have lights, so they shine up in the oaks, and it gives us a nice, area that we can see at night, even though there are no lights out here. My husband loves to cook out here. But as you can tell, this building was built in the 1940s. Welcome to the Playhouse. And it was called the Playhouse because when the soldiers in World War II built it, this was where they played poker, and this was all they did was play in here. And so we still call it the Playhouse. And it is funny, sometimes people come and I go, "Okay, y'all are staying in the Playhouse." And they're like, "Well, that sounds fun." They don't know what it is. First thing I wanted to show you is the Bière de Lire. When we moved this building here, I knew it needed a light fixture over the table, but I just didn't want anything too serious. I don't know, I felt like, I just couldn't find anything. And once again, I just hung a bulb there until I figured it out. And then one day it dawned on me, I started thinking, wouldn't it be fun to do something with bottle caps? Like, I started thinking about a transition from a room like in the 60s and 70s when they had the beads hanging. And then I started thinking, wouldn't that be fun to do it with bottle caps? And then I thought, what if we would do the chandelier with bottle caps? And bingo. So this is the first one, and I hammered most of these, though anybody that came to visit for a weekend down on the dock, we would all sit there hammering when you took a break from swimming. And after I made it, I started thinking, this is brilliant because we can teach people how to make things out of trash and teach them, A, to pick up the trash, and B, to make some money off something that doesn't cost anything. So that's when I started my little Bière de Lire enterprise. This house is so special. The stove even is the original from the 1940s. And my husband cleaned it up, and it still works, even though it kind of scares me. But he trusts it. I usually leave the house when he turns it on. This is the area where everybody hangs out. During hunting season, my son and all his buddies will come here and just pack this place. I have to say, my sister-in-law is an artist, and she has very proudly put our family motto above the the fireplace, which is smart is smart, it's stupid. And usually whenever somebody in the family does something stupid, that's what they say. And then also when they do something smart, we all say smart is smart and stupid is stupid. But anyway, this is just a mix of furniture. After a trip to South Africa, I became very enamored with all these bead chairs and started thinking in my black and white, and here I just had to have it. And then this was a chair that I found at Fritz Porter in Charleston, and I just love it. The Playhouse has several rooms. This room is almost exactly like it was. The termites had eaten up so much of the back that we had to take a lot of boards off the walls in the back to replace things here. And so the back rooms are painted. But my favorite thing in here are the ducks. Look at the ducks on the wall. And you're not going to believe this, but as we were flipping through her old guest book, we found this one. And this is probably 11/27/42. This was Lou S. Vizard from Newark, New Jersey. So it was probably Thanksgiving. It was too far for him to go home. And he says, "You put me in fine shape for the war effort. Thanks from the bottom of my belly." And we think that the guy that did these cartoons of the man with a bandage on his nose and the horse was probably the person who painted on the walls. And his name was Louis Ravielli. And I looked him up online, and evidently after the war, he was a cartoonist. So his says, "Honestly, kids say I never had so much fun breaking my nose on Honey's neck." And Honey was her horse. So it was really, this is such a special place, and I will do everything I can to preserve it. I just love it. When people walk inside our home, I want them to feel welcome. I want them to feel like, oh boy, this is going to be fun. And oh yeah, we keep a big basket of party hats in the corner. I mean, you know, if it starts raining outside, we can't play outside or be barbecuing or whatever, we then have a hat party. We start the blender up and just, you know, have fun. And we play games with kids with the hats. So we play dress up, and then if people have their kids here, we would make them do a show for us. And so we'd all set up with cocktails in hand and watch our children perform. With all a hat basket is highly recommended. Everyone should have one. When you walk in a home and it's not so perfect, which, you know, and it has a little patina and it looks like it's lived in, I feel like that is what makes you feel what makes you feel at home and feel like the people who live here don't just live in a structure, it's part of their life. And it's just I feel very lucky we got that. At age 29, I don't know how I got this lucky. I'm amazed that I could come up with this and still love it at 64. So I don't know. The problem is I haven't slowed down, and at 64, I still try to do everything I did at 29. So, and this house makes you have a little more energy probably than some places. Let me take you to the real treat is the Vardo, or a gypsy wagon, and I got a great story about that. But I also love these big live oak trees. My grandfather bought this property in the 1950s, and believe it or not, he planted these then. You know, it's this rich Delta soil. You would think these were 200 years old. But anyway, let me take you over there. And we hang out around the fire pit a lot, particularly in the fall. But I really can't wait to show you the gypsy wagon, because my husband says I travel so much, I'm really kind of a gypsy. Here, Birdie. Here, Birdie. I bought a book called Shed Chic a while back, and my husband loved it. And he had been looking at this old trailer base that was just out in the pecan orchard that was grown up with weeds. And he kept thinking, what can I do with that trailer? And so he got the idea to surprise me and make this gypsy wagon for me. And he did a great job. I mean, he had an architect draw it up so that it's got the little slanted walls. And here it is. We have lots of fun in here. Sometimes we come out here with a big bowl of popcorn, and we can pull this out and make a bed and we spend the night in here, and it's like you feel like a kid at a slumber party. It is just a blast. And so we drink wine, we watch a movie, we eat popcorn, and then we snuggle up in the gypsy wagon. But it was so fun just finding things for it, and it's really a great place to have fun and come in and read books. This is the book Shed Chic that inspired my husband. And the funny story about the gypsy wagon is he kept leaving on Saturday morning saying he was going to go get some extra work done at his office. And I didn't pay any attention to it, and I just kept about my business. And he was doing this for a long time, and I never thought about it. And then one day I was cooking something, and I ran out of the ingredient. And so I called him and I said, hey, I'm getting ready to run to the grocery store. Do you need anything? Because the grocery store is about 10 miles away. So he goes, no. He goes, I'll go get it while I'm in town. And I said, no, that's all right. I need it right now. And so I jumped in the car. I went in. Of course, I drove right by his office and didn't even notice his car wasn't there. And then got what I needed, drove back. And then he walked in the house that afternoon. And he said, well, I guess you realized I really wasn't at the office today. And I felt my bottom lip going, and he goes, I've been lying to you. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, who is he having an affair with in this town of 700 people? And I was just like blown. I was really about to crumble. And then he goes, every Saturday morning, I've been working on a Vardo for you. And of course, the first thing I said was, what's a Vardo? But anyway, I couldn't believe it. And he brought me down to see it, and he said, I'm building it. And he had a carpenter friend helping him. And he goes, and you can decorate it. So it's just been fun to find things here and there. And I mean, this is some fun paper that I got years ago at Creative Co-op, and I didn't know what to do with it. And one day I went, I'm just going to staple it to the walls in here. Because my idea is I think I'll have this for a while, and then I'll get tired of it, and I'll change it to another wallpaper. But anyway, it was ingenious the way the carpenter figured out to just pick up the bottom and pull this out. And the two mattresses go down, and it makes a queen bed. And I love the Suzanne in here. It hides our little refrigerator and all the things under it. And the best thing and the worst thing about staying out here, we love listening to the birds in the morning when you're waking up, and it's just so magical. But all night long, the dogs hear all kinds of things, and they are howling and jumping up and everything, and we're letting them out and letting them back in. So that does kind of spoil a little of the magic, but it's a fun place. As I was telling you about this guy representing Uzbekistan, for instance, look at these little stitches around here, and this is why I think he makes the most magnificent Suzannes I've ever seen. This is called a flicker stitch. See how one stitch is white, the next one is black, and it makes them pop. After you see these with the flicker stitches, the other ones, while they're beautiful, they just don't have the depth that these do. This almost gives it a real raised feel and a liveliness to them. So these are my favorite kind to sell, the ones with the flicker stitch. I think I just love our home because it also is so interactive with nature, and it's so durable. We did concrete floors. I don't freak out when kids come running through in wet bathing suits. I mean, I think what I'm so proud of is I've managed to make a place that looks really good, but as you can see, dog friendly. It's very kid friendly. I guess what I've done is we've created a weekend house that we live in every day, and it's really been fun. I mean, we have a nice life. During warm months, which is about April to October, we go down on the dock, take a lake bath, wash our hair, put on my caftan and sit down there and have a cocktail with my husband and then come up and eat. It's really pretty nice. And on weekends, the house is full of people. We have company every weekend. And it's gotten to be we don't even ask anyone. People just call and say, okay, we're open this weekend and that weekend. Which one works for y'all? And we go, oh, okay. And so we're happy to have all this and to be able to share it with our friends and family. Welcome to the garden. See this good Delta soil? It grows things really well. This is so exciting, though. I've had such a wonderful variety of zinnias come back up. I'll usually come out here and pick zinnias just about every day. And because zinnias love to be cut, and you go down and cut just where the next one is coming up. But these are some of my favorites. Look at the different colors in this petal, and they blend so well with the other pinks. I love using these to put arrangements together. And then the reason I have so many zinnias is I go through, and when I find a bad one, I just clip it and throw it in. And so these reseed every year. You have to watch out. Sometimes I have to pull out the purple ones because the purple ones seem to be dominant, and if I don't watch out, they'll all be purple. So I did that this year. The first ones that bloomed purple, I pulled about 75% of them out, and now I got this mix of all these other colors. So to me, the fun thing to do is go, okay, you plant there. I would like for you to go there, and let's do some of these. These seem to be so healthy. They almost look like dahlias. They're just fabulous. I love these colors. And I have a great vase I'm thinking of putting them in that a friend of mine made. Some of my favorite are these they're like zinnias with perms. If you notice, they're a little bit frizzy on the ends. And these are called cactus zinnias. When Sarah, my daughter, was little, she would always go, Mom, can we go cut some happy flowers? And then one time I came in with roses, and she goes, but no, those aren't the happy flowers. Anyway, so zinnias actually remind me of my sweet Sarah. Look at that color in there. Just great. This is a good one too. More of those mixed colors. All righty, maybe just a few more and we'll have it. We'll add some little purplish ones, purpley pinks. This is an area where we grow all our citrus trees, and last year at the Nashville Antique and Garden Show, I found this little greenhouse from Belgium. And so we've been so excited because now we have a great place to roll the trees in and save the citrus if it gets very cold. Last winter we had one day of 8 degrees, which we very rarely get single digits here. It usually gets down to freezing maybe once or twice in the winter, but most of the time we're almost tropical, but not quite. This is another little good patch of zinnias because I just threw any other seeds left over, and I'll have to show you my seeds after I do arrangements. And one thing about my landscaping I have learned, I was very excited after the Chelsea Garden Show that I went to a few years ago, and I decided I wanted this wattling everywhere in my gardens because it was everywhere in England. And once my friend Jeanette Whitson with Garden Variety Design told me where to get it, which I can't remember right now, but I was so excited, and I have figured out that the climate in Louisiana is not going to work for these. They really start deteriorating pretty quickly. But it's okay that I tend to like things with patina, so we'll just see how long they last. But I do recommend being in a drier climate. Oh, and these are the kale that made it through the freeze, and I have learned if you cut your kale from the bottom and keep doing that, you can end up with topiaried kale. It's looks like something from Dr. Seuss, but you know, I love anything weird. This is a vase that I just love. My friend Chip Sloan made, and it appears to be a Chinese vase, but these are actually the cypress trees from our lakes here in Louisiana. And I keep hoping he will make more, but he seems to be one of those artist types that's in and out of town all the time and changes and does different things, and I so love everything he does. But I think these are my favorite. This is going to be a very basil-y batch. In the winter we have more cilantro, but this is summertime salt. And we just let the salt dry out the leaves, and then the more we stir it, the more they break down. Kind of fun. Well, In college, when I was an art major, my dad said, "What are you going to do after college?" And I told him I would like to go to New York and work for an interior designer and see if that's what I want to do. And then I would like to go to interior design school. And my dad said, "Honey, that's just for rich ladies to have fun. You're going to have to make a living." So I was really frustrated, but I thought, oh darn, okay. So I got out of college and basically had a few different jobs. But when I got married, and I had Sarah, who is now working with me, I was trying to figure out a way to work from home. So I started hand painting baby clothes. Long story short, I ended up splatter painting socks for Mervyn's, JCPenney's, and Dillard's. And socks were coming to our house in 18-wheelers. And so if you or your daughter had splatter painted socks in the 80s and early 90s, they came from here and they were painted right outside of this house. And that's actually when I made a nice amount of money, and so I decorated my house. And then many friends would come visit, and they would insist I come help them, and very quickly it turned into flying all over the country doing interior design for lots of people in New York and Nashville and Houston and all over the place. And then I realized I was about to lose my mind because it was too much for one person. And all my clients were, whenever I made a pillow for somebody, just a plain pillow cost a lot of money. And I kept thinking, gosh, for this amount of money, you should be able to get something really special. So originally, I made these pillows for my clients. Well, people love the pillows, and so more people wanted to hire me to get the pillows. And eventually, I had to give up the interior design. And it was difficult because, you end up loving your clients, and then they become friends. But Katrina hit, and at the time, a lot of my work was in New Orleans. And so everything was dead. I mean, nobody cared about their houses. They were just trying to, get electricity, build back. They needed sheetrock. They didn't need pillows. And so it gave me a lot of time to just focus on the pillows and start reaching out to other designers and other stores, and the pillow business really took off. Why don't you come in the studio? This is where I work every day when I'm not on the road. And what we do in here is I find textiles. For instance, this came from a Turkish kaftan, and what we do is we cut out all of the little areas, and you have to be so careful not to cut the stitches in the back or the piece will come undone. This is also something called a Duval stitch. If you notice on the top, it's gold threads. And what they would do is they'd bring the gold threads over and then catch it on the back with a cotton thread because they were trying to save the valuable thread and they didn't want to waste any on the back. I've learned a lot from taking textiles apart. And this process or this stitch has taught my ladies how to sew them back onto a better velvet, a stronger fabric, and it's taught them how to hide their stitches. So it's every day is a learning experience. This is where I actually design, and I dig around and pull out something and I lay it out here. And normally you will see me like this because I keep a tape measure around my neck all the time, and half the time I run to town and I forget I have it around my neck. But I measure everything out, and then I have a design sheet where I draw the picture, and anyway, I'll draw it out, I'll make a description, I figure out the price. And the funny thing is, I actually started out as a math major in college because math just came easy to me. And I'm so glad because every day figuring out the cost of these pillows is it's like one big algebra problem. And I go, oh, thank you, math. People always say, how are you going to ever use math? Well, it's important. But we have some beautiful pieces. I particularly love this one. Look at the sequin work on this. It is just amazing. And the good thing is it's in good shape. A lot of times the sequins are coming up. We will have to trim very closely as we put it down, and you try to tuck this under so that it doesn't show when we finish the pillow. This is just an amazing cape from probably the Ottoman Empire. I think from Turkey, but it could be anywhere in that area. I just thought that was amazing, and I'm surprised an LSU fan hasn't bought it with the purple and gold. But the other thing that people don't realize, all my trims are antique. And so, for instance, when I go to use a piece, I only have this much, and I may go, this is the perfect patina. And then when I go to say, this isn't quite the perfect patina, but I'm just showing you how to do it. When I go to put this around, I'm like, okay, this is looking good. And then I get to that, and look, I need 2 more inches. And so I kind of go, okay, let me go back to the drawing board and throw it over and find some more. But if you want to look in these drawers, I have quite a collection of these metallic tapes that in France are called galons. And we have the smaller sizes over here. And I'm always looking for these kind of pieces. When I first started out, I was so slow at designing because I didn't have so many trims. And one day in France, I found in a flea market a huge box. And I mean, there must have been $10,000 worth of these trims already taken off of things, because a lot of times we have to take them off pieces like this. So that's time consuming. But anyway, the guy was telling me how much they were by the centimeter, and I said, okay, will you start measuring, and I'll come back. I'll go have lunch. And I came back, and he said, well, I've only gotten about a quarter of the way through, and will you start picking out from these? And I said, okay. And he looked so mad that he was having to measure everything. So I said, okay, well, what about for the whole box, if I just buy the whole box? And he goes, how about 3,000? And I mean, that was when designing became a lot easier, because I had so many different patinas in that one box. And I tell you what, it weighed a fortune, because this is all metallic. I mean, these are heavy pieces, and I did pay a lot to have it shipped back. But that was a turning point in my business, because I ended up with so many different options. But I feel very fortunate that while I was doing interior design, that the businesses kind of overlap, because the interior design basically helped me buy so many of my textiles. So that gave me a nice inventory to start. And then, gosh, in 1996 or 7, I think, Neiman's bought for 22 of their stores. And so that's when I really got into the business very heavy. I had to go to France with bags and bags. And back then, I dragged them all home myself, which was not fun. My friends who were traveling with me would call me Pigpen, because I'd have these big rolling bags, and I would drop them, and dust would just flop out of them, and it was really kind of embarrassing. They didn't want to. I'd have to take a cab by myself, because they didn't want to be in the cab with the bags. But it was a lot of digging, learning, and fortunately, I was very curious. And I've been doing this so long that it's funny how I have found the same priest robe. I found the first one in France, I found the second one in Italy, and then I found the third one in Mexico. And they were both from the late 1800s, and I thought that must have been the most popular vestment during that time. I mean, it was just crazy to find the same thing in 3 different countries. Home means a place where you just want to go in and cocoon, and you just love it. And honestly, I love having land. I think the home is part of the landscape even. And if you have a home that opens up to the outdoors, you are happy in any season. In the winter, I love being in this big red room that's so warm and with the fireplace going. And in the spring, summer, and fall, the doors are always open to the screen porch, and we love hanging out there and cooking on the porch and eating dinner on the porch. So I just think home is where you're comfortable and you feel cozy and you feel love.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Sarah. Welcome to my home in Virginia. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Be sure to visit our website, homeworthy.com, to discover amazing furniture, art, accessories, and more, all handpicked by our editors to help transform your house into a home. All of the items are inspired by the episodes you see here on Homeworthy. Enjoy!
Hi there, I'm Sarah Wiley, and welcome to my house in Richmond, Virginia. We chose this house in a roundabout way. When I've been married to my husband now for almost 11 years, and when we first got married, we lived in my house over in a different area of town. And it was perfect. I had 3 children, and the house had 4 bedrooms, one for each of my children, and one for me, but I was in a garage. And so, sorry, it was a renovated garage, but it had a tiny bathroom and one closet, you know, one of those 6-foot wide closets, and it just was not a good space for a couple. So we were gonna renovate that house, and we looked into doing that. We actually got some plans, and then we thought, well, my stepmother actually said, you know, I think I know a house you all might like. And so we decided to come and look at this house. It had been on the market for quite some time, but we came to the house. It's so nondescript. It's a ranch house, and I'm not a big ranch fan, but nothing architecturally wonderful about the front of it. Not even inside. It was built in 1966. We walked in the house, and it was very attractively decorated. But when we came back to this room that I'm in right now, okay, my husband has 5 sons, and I have 3 children. Not that anybody, that right now they range from 23 to 30, 35. So not everybody doesn't live here. This is definitely a grown-up empty nester house. You could really never have a family in it, although there have been families in it, but you will see it's not perfect for a family. But this room sold us. It is just the happiest room in the house. Welcome to my front hall. It's not very big, but it's a great entryway. I've got this Tebow wallpaper that is relatively new, probably 5 years. But, and what significance here, I've got 2 pieces of art by my great-grandfather. This one is it's actually more valuable than most of them because it's a pen and ink, and it's original because it's got pencil marks in the background, but my dad gave that to me. My first husband kind of looked like that, and there's a little inscription on the back of what he said. You know what? I'm going to read it because it's kind of funny. He said, we were married at the time, "This is a drawing by Charles Dana Gibson. Somehow he must have a premonition about the likeness of his youngest grandson's eldest daughter and her husband." And so my dad gave that to me because he's not very charming looking, but the woman certainly is. And this is a oil painting that he did. It's nobody. It's a nobody. He did a lot of nobodies, but they were just models. So we have that now. And this is an interesting little thing. I had a tour here another day, so I really researched this. This is a little gift that a friend gave to my great-grandmother, Irene Langern, and it says, "Irene Langern Gibson from Maddie Clark Williamson." We don't know who that is, but should old acquaintance be forgot? Should old acquaintance be forgot? Danville, Virginia, May 5th, 1922. I was going, what is this? Turns out I looked it up on the internet, and in 1922, my great aunt, Nancy Astor, came to Danville, which was their family, where my great-great-grandparents had started their family. And so it's the family home, and when they all became famous. Anyway, she came to Danville on that date and spoke to 5,000 people. So a friend gave that to her sister, my great-grandmother. Okay, these chairs right here are the host and hostess chairs. And when you see them, you see my dining room, they're missing. I'm having some people over for dinner tonight, and the host and hostess chair are missing. But I'm also going to show you the inspiration for the dancing lamb lady and the sword-holding lamb man. So I get inspiration from everywhere, so I'll show you that in just a minute. I was an interior designer for 28 years, and it was probably 28. It took a while for me to get into what I do now. I have sewn my whole life. My mother got me to take a sewing lesson, and I sewed my own clothes when I was 14. I sewed my children's clothes, I sewed my own clothes, not a whole lot, but I know how to do it. I also needlepoint, and I knit, and I'm very handsy, and I'm also really good figuring things out technically. I actually did photography and had a dark room, so I've always been, all my friends would go to, be on sports, and I was taking art classes. So interior design was great, but it was an easy morph into, well, not really. I started with the monogramming and, the towels, and I started selling them. I would go to the market and buy towels and buy, bathrobes, and I did a little bit of that. Well, it wasn't too long that I said, I hate this. I love monograms, don't get me wrong, I think they're beautiful, but they are so precise, and you have to have everything lined up just perfectly square. I mean, who's ever seen a monogram that goes like that, or a whatever. So then I learned how to digitize, and digitizing is the art of drawing a design, and a lot of embroiderers buy designs like a little sailboat or a flower that they put on different things, or a letter, if you're doing a monogram. But I learned how to draw. See, the first things I started with were children's drawings, and the idea that instead of throwing art projects that they bring hundreds of home from school under the bed in a box, bring one or two out, I would digitize it and put it on a pillow. And so that's kind of how it started. And I do a lot of pillows with dogs, families, houses, and those are all sort of my commission pieces. But for me, my love is interiors, and I've done rooms, rooms that I find on Instagram. There's also something called the Room Portrait Club, and this woman over in London, England, Sarah Jane Axelby, I believe is her name. She puts out a different picture every week, and artists from all over the place, all over the world, will do that room in their art, which is usually, painted, but I do it in textiles, in fabric, and actually the fabric that I use, it's all interior design fabrics. It's not the ones that you get in craft stores for quilting. It's definitely not quilting. It's interior design fabrics, which for me is very distinguishable to other fabrics that you will see. Let's go to the dining room right here. All right, the first thing I want to show you, well, my dining room table is not always set like this, but I am going to have some friends over for dinner tonight. But these chairs I call memory chairs, and I did these such a long time ago, but they're still memories of ours, of a place that we used to stay. My husband went to St. Andrews. This is our 8 children together at our wedding. So anyway, and then I've got 3 more over there, our dogs, and Chapel Hill. My husband went to Chapel Hill, so it's the old well. And then, as I mentioned to you before, the inspiration for my host and hostess chairs are these two platters that I got for a wedding present, first wedding many years ago. I got into knitting animals recently, in the past year or so, and started, anyway, Dot Pebbles is somebody who I found her on Instagram. Actually, my stepsister told me about them. And these are the little knitted figurines that I did, little bunny rabbit. Made the pants and ordered another little Etsy shop for these precious little shoes. And then I've got a family of frogs here in the rowboat out for a little stroll. And this is a fun little thing that I've got from my grandparents. I wonder if you can guess what this is. Open it up, and you can probably guess. It's a men's Beau Brummel. Beau Brummel was a eccentric dandy. They were very fancy back in the day. There wasn't plumbing, so they had to have their little bathroom. That's not going to stay, I don't think. But the pièce de résistance is the potty. How about that in my dining room? So remember I told you this was the living room and is now the dining room. And so as all living rooms are, here we have a fireplace. One of these days I'm going to get logs, but we haven't gotten logs yet. But I did pick up this wonderful needlepoint English countryside house that I love. And this painting was my grandmother's. Okay, my grandmother, this is a different grandmother. This grandmother and grandfather lived across the street from where I am now, 2 doors down on the other side of the street. So a lot of things in my house came from there. This is a painting that she had by Russell Milo. He was a teacher at VCU for many years, and I have always loved just the light of that. It looks like it could have been painted today. It's very modern colors, but I like that. And my grandmother was a collector of different things, so these were hers as well from across the street. So when I put the wallpaper in the front hallway, I did this wallpaper as well. It's also made by Thibault, and it's my colors, pink and orange and purples, and it's such a happy, warm color. And as I said, this room was dark. It was a dark living room. It's sort of a dark dining room, but dining rooms are kind of dark, used at nighttime anyway. So, but I needed to show you this, what I've also got from my grandmother, and that is this dining room table with miniature silver. It's a miniature dining room with chairs and miniature silver. William Myers made this, and I can tell you so much about him, but he made miniature silver originally for his wife and their house. And there was a New York Madison Avenue decorator who discovered him and decided she could make some money off of him. So she had a little shop on Madison Avenue and put these miniatures, some other miniatures I'm going to show you, but the miniatures were in her window. This is from what I read, a roving magazine guy from Harper's Bazaar came by, saw it, put it in the magazine, and people from all over the place came as collectors to purchase his silver. So they had a really good thing going on, and I've got more to show you, but later on he got a furniture maker to make miniature furniture and said, this is really wonderful. I've got a whole dining room table set here. She put it in the window, and a movie queen, that's what it says in this thing that I read, a movie queen came by, saw it. He said it'd be much too expensive for anybody to get. She purchased the whole thing and put it in her dining room for her Christmas table. So I got this collection from my grandmother, who got it from her mother, who got it from a friend, but I've got quite an extensive collection, you will see, and I just cherish it. So I've set the table for 8 of us tonight, and I picked up Trader Joe's flowers and made these arrangements, and I was kind of pleased with them. Last month I was in Cashers, North Carolina, and these candlesticks right here are made in Hollands, and it's called, I believe, stick candle, and they come in all different colors. These are not very natural. A lot of them are brown, but these are candles that look like sticks. I got the napkins in Provence when we were there last year, my husband and I. These purple, wonderful purple, were my grandmother's from across the street. Love those. Picked up the green ones at Anthropology on sale. So that was a fun find. I said I'm the shoemaker's child. I don't try not to spend too much money. And then, of course, the wedding china Wedgwood Bianca that was from my first marriage, and Ronald Reagan had this on the presidential yacht, which I always thought was a fun story. So, and I still love those colors. I collected these, I think I've got a set of 12. These are from Turkey. And we were at a Turkish store, Turkish where the guy made them. But I picked out every single one. I've got bowls too. And I love the blue and white. I'm not really a blue and white person, but I did like the blue and white. And so I've got those. I'm also one that mixes a lot of things. These were my grandmother's, my dad's mom, and some of them are sort of faded. These are Royal Dalton, and I've got some more in the other room, and they are Charles Dana Gibson drawings that have been made onto the plates. And I've got a funny story about that. I think I've got about 12 now, but my dad gave me a couple, and I was on eBay and I found some, and I found 3, and I ordered them and they came broken. So anyway, I ended up getting the money back, but I kept the broken ones in a top closet knowing someday I was going to use them. So I'm going to show you later on what I've used them for. But that's for in a little while. So when we came to this house, there really wasn't a whole lot that had to be done. I will say I've painted every room but one, and I've wallpapered. The biggest thing that we did, which is the favorite thing that I did, is I swapped out the living room and the dining room. And you will see our kitchen is tiny, and we now live in the room that used to be the dining room. And I could go on, but the living room, which is the room right there, it's kind of dark. It's now the dining room. It's kind of dark. And so I'd gotten rid of a lot of furniture when we moved here, and I ended up going out to Pier 1 and buying these 4, fake indoor-outdoor wicker chairs and put them in there thinking, oh, I'll have girls over here and we'll sit right here in this little room. Well, I don't think we ever used it, so I don't know what got in my brain to swap them, but that's one of the favorite things I did for this house. All right, let's go to the sitting room. Oh, and this little Pippa loves to be with me all the time. Here we are in the sitting room, one of the spots they always like to sit. This is where we live. It's right off the kitchen, which you'll see in a little bit. I've got a portrait of my daughter, by Jonette Egley. These are some works that I have done, small rooms. Here's another one right here. And I haven't even mentioned my sister is Dana Gibson, of Dana Gibson Design. And she makes toll and designs fabric for Stroheim and Rome. And we're just a very artistic family. Right here, I've got, this is a family portrait from the 1970s that I did. It was one of the first people that I did. And it was featured in Country Living magazine, which was kind of neat. And I had all kinds of orders for family portraits back then. Something neat that I have right here as well are these salesman samples. Back in the day, before you would walk into a store, I guess, salesmen would go around and show miniature pieces of furniture. And these belonged to my grandmother, who was across the street. And this one's really fun. This is exactly, not exactly, but pretty much the way it was when she had it. And she collected, I don't know if she collected, but she has all kinds of old stamps that are in here. And I've had fun using some of them to mail out on letters to my friends or thank you notes or what have you. And then she did this back in 1969. She put it's the first man on the moon. And she sent these all to herself with our names on them. And I guess she thought maybe someday we'd frame them or something. Haven't, but I just love this little piece right here. A little Chippendale desk. As far as pattern, I have no rules when I use my different patterns. I once had a client, or I've had several clients that didn't want to use a pattern with an Oriental rug, which I was actually able to talk them out of it, because why can't you put lots of pattern with an Oriental rug? And I will say with my art, I might just use a design and completely redecorate it as I place the fabrics. So that's funny. I did recently get, these are old grain sacks, and I made them into pillows, which has been nice and comfortable, because this is the room that we sit in all the time and watch television, drink a glass of wine, have a cup of coffee in the morning. Just a favorite cozy little room that we have. Another inherited piece from my grandmother was this pine desk. Nothing fancy. She had it in a room she called Alice's room, which was sort of a catch-all room. But I loved all the little nooks and crannies, and it's even got a little hidden area up here. And I love displaying miniatures. I'm obviously into miniatures. I think you've probably noticed that. These little silver army guys, she had 4 of them, and I actually have my brothers and my 2 sisters have one. So just lots of little knickknacks, but they're better than knickknacks, I think. I mean, look at this little silver windmill. That just super cute to me. So over here we have this corner cupboard that I got. This was my mom and dad's, and I recently inherited that. And I've got more of the Gibson girl plates, or Charles Dana Gibson illustrations, more of my grandmother's little roosters. Down here I've got some of my sisters. She doesn't do these anymore, but they are just wonderful little ceramic figurines, so whimsical and fun. Little dog, a cow, and a lady. And these recent collections by a artist here in Richmond that I just adored. Her name was Susan Gund, but they're little miniature people and fish and things inside these boxes. This is a needlepoint piece that my grandmother started and I finished. But what was so funny is she had done different colors right here, and it didn't matter. I mean, again, pattern, I don't have a problem with pattern. Not exactly the way it was supposed to be, but we finished it, and I've had that for a long time. So my great-grandfather on my dad's side was Charles Dana Gibson, and you either know him or you don't. But he was an illustrator at the turn of the century, and he did pen and inks. And he did pen and inks. He lived in New York, and he actually met my great-grandmother. Okay, I got to go back to my great-grandmother, Irene Langer, and she's one of 5 sisters, 2 brothers. The 5 sisters were really, really rock and roll cool people for back then. But she was supposedly got 62 proposals of marriage. She was the last Southern belle in Virginia. So that's really was kind of cool. Anyway, I think she met my great-grandfather at the Patriarch's Ball in New York. I'm not quite sure, but she was a debutante or whatever, went to all these places. And I can't remember the exact story, or exact wording, but my great-great-grandfather said to his daughter, his name was Shilly Langern, said, oh, what are you doing with that poster painter? Anyway, Charles Dana Gibson was a famous illustrator, and he illustrated for Life magazine and a bunch of other, mostly New York magazines, which of course those were the magazines that went all over the country and world at the time. And at one point he owned Life magazine, but I've got some neat family pieces that have been passed down, and my dad's given me things. But this is something that's really cool. Okay, the Gibson girl is who he's known for. And people would say that my great-grandmother was a Gibson girl, where actually he had started drawing these women 2 years before he even met my great-grandmother. But these women, I mean, you talk about now, you know, women's lib and all that stuff. These women, back with their hoop skirts, the turn of the century, they were the it girl. My great-grandmother was part of starting the Little Boys and Girls Club. She helped start that, and it's still going today. I mean, they did such wonderful things for this country and this world. You know, a lot of them lived in England. But anyway, it's a pretty cool family history. Okay, let me show you my tiny kitchen that's off the tiny sitting room. Well, here we are in my teeny tiny kitchen, but it is all I need. I'm not that big a cook. If I want to cook, I can cook. I didn't do anything to this room when we got it. I liked the quarry tile. I did put this Mary McDonald, it's a grass cloth wallpaper, which you buy by the yard, not by the roll, but by the yard. So I got, and you had to buy a minimum of 10 yards, and I bought 10 yards, and we made it work. And so I've had fun collecting these Italian paper mache trays that I've put on there. So most nights when we have dinner, I'll go pick up something at the local Stella's or the Yellow Umbrella, put it in a casserole and warm it up. I feel like it always tastes better warmed up in the oven versus the microwave. So that's my way of cooking. I might prepare a little salad. I've got, I mean, you know, this is the greatest kitchen, and I really had nothing to do with it. I did replace this, but you know, the cutting board's there. Little decorative things around here. Coffee maker in the morning. What else do you need? The other day, my garden club had a wreath making workshop, and I was envisioning making this wonderful wreath for my front door. And we got there, and there were these tiny little round things about like this, but we each got to make our own wreath. It was so much fun and so therapeutic. I had such a great time. And so you did all the greens, and then she had all kinds of natural materials, including these dehydrated oranges that I would wire or hot glue gun in, and I'm quite thrilled with it. And evidently, it can last for a long time as it turns brown and just naturalizes. So, and my friend the other day asked me, well, what are you going to do when you cook? And I said, Allison, I don't cook that much, so it'll be fine. So I was in New York at John Darien's shop, which I love to go in. He has a whole collection of Aster de la Villette, and I know I'm not saying that right, but not often do I put flowers in it. But for this occasion, I thought I'll put flowers in it. But it actually looks really pretty just sitting there by itself in my little window of orchids. And I like orchids, and I'm able to get them to grow back. This is a perfect window, but notice this little orchid right here. This is a new shoot coming up. Waiting for these. Those are here for another month or so, but love my little orchids in my window. So I want to take you to our family room, which is the room that sold us, where we started, but I want to show you a few things along the way. We have a lot of family portraits. My mom was a painter, but this is kind of neat, and I forget about it. But this is a letter from Winston Churchill to my grandfather, 10 Downing Street, October 3rd, 1940. Dear Mr. Gibson, it's a very formal letter, but anyway, very many thanks for your letter. It was indeed kind of you to write something, Winston Churchill. So got that hanging right here. And family portraits. My husband and his father are both pediatricians, and they had a little magazine article. This is a little piece that I did of Charles Dana Gibson and my grandfather. He had come up to Connecticut, where my grandfather was on the Yale rowing team, and so I guess he came up to see one of his regattas. So here's my great-grandfather, Charles Dana Gibson, and my grandfather, Langhorne Gibson, shaking hands. Coming down here, I've got some portraits of my children that I've done through the years. They're rather old, but I do like them. My mom is an artist as well, and I've got some of her paintings right here. My sister, full of talents, did this portrait of me. I was 8 months pregnant with my son, but you would never know that. I remember exactly where I was sitting. And then Charles Dana Gibson did this painting right here. And again, he did the paintings when he was older. Illustrating was what he did for a living, but later on he did these, I think, fabulous oil paintings that are still as important today as I think they were back then, and just as modern, or not modern, but work fine in a 2023 house. Here's an illustration that he did, and you'll love my little wet bar. No, it's not a wet bar, my little dry bar. And I've got a Charles Dana Gibson wallpaper that I found from York of the Gibson girls with red lipstick. And through this back little hallway, I've got some fun little things. These dolls right here, I went through a little period of making dolls, and my friend, I amazed myself that I would do this. I made the faces, I made the heads, sewed all the clothes, knitted the sweater, made these. I made the body out of wire and wrapped it with quilting batting, and then made, this is an Osborne little white fabric. I remember I had made the whole darn body and clothes. This one too, and I've got more up in the attic. My grandmother was a sculptor as well as, oh, I didn't show you some things in there, darn it all, but she did this of me, this little bust of me when I was a little girl. And I love this painted Italian piece of furniture, nothing fine, but I do like it. Right here, I've got some of my pillows that I've done. I think I told you I've done families, and I did 2 of these right here. This is me with my 3 children. And then this is my husband with his 5 boys at this one's wedding. This is a dog that we used to have that another dog has chewed it up. This is kind of neat. This is like the very first or second thing I did. This was a letter to my grandmother. She went to St. Catherine's School, which is up the way. All that was written was Miss Sarah Tanner, St. Catherine's School, Richmond, Virginia, West Hampton, and it made it. It got to her. That's all you had to do back then. So I thought that was a neat memory. This is, let me take this and show you. This is that 1970s portrait that I told you about that I made and was featured in Country Living magazine. Black and white photo of the family. Here I am, I think I was 10, 1972. It was my baby sister's christening. This house is a culmination of all my former houses. I love this house. It's a house, I hate to say this, but it's more, as far as aesthetic, it's more my house and my husband's house. And I think he'd be okay with me saying that. He's the science guy, I'm the art guy, art woman. But it's all, I mean, everybody's going to all this, I'm looking around as I speak, but people, I see so many houses now that are just modern and no brown furniture and, white and cream and taupe and all that. And this house, to me, is so warm. It's filled with family treasures, And I mean, I bought some things, but it's really just a culmination of my 61 years. So it just makes me happy. It's very warm. I would say my house is, I don't like the word eclectic, but it's eclectic. I mean, no, nothing you can say about it. It's a collection of me, my family, me and my family. So it's all different ages. So it's eclectic. And here we are in the room that sold us. We just love this room. It's big, it's got beautiful, I mean, for not very architecturally important house, this room has got great eaves, and we just really enjoy it. This piece was what I was looking for so many years. And it's from an antique dealer up in Hot Springs. Had this in a shop and I just fell in love with it. And a woman on Park Avenue had it, and she displayed those little Chinese, I'm not quite sure what they are, but little mud figures. But for me, they were perfect for my William Myers silver that I got from my grandmother. So this is just a wonderful display of that, along with her. My grandmother was a silver smith. She made things and little pieces of art that she did, along with a few silver oatmeal bowls. But this china is just, I hope you can look at it really closely, or I'll show you closely, possibly in a little bit. Little miniature forks, knives, and spoons. So this was just a perfect piece of furniture to display my silver. So that's that. I just recently wanted to get a bowl to put orchids in for this center of the room. It's just the room where we hang out. And I went and looked for the perfect bowl to put orchids in. And instead I found this terracotta boar from an antique dealer, and I just fell in love with it. So it did need a little softening, so I put the orchids around it. The orchids are in little baby cups, little silver baby cups that I snagged out of my container, which I thought was perfect, again, softening the terracotta. Now, this is also pretty interesting. 2 houses ago, we lived in a house that we started with 1,500 square feet, and we added 2,500 square feet. And we had a great room like this. And the two sofas were in that room with actually the 2 chairs that are behind us. And it was nice, I liked it, but for a room to make sense, it's much better to have the TV and the fireplace at the same end of the room. In that original house, we had the fireplace and the TV at opposite sides of the room, and it made it very difficult. So when we moved to this house, this furniture is 1994 is when I got it. And so that's pretty old, and I think this is just the first slipcover I made, so it's lasted pretty well. But I mean, this is when I used to tell people, if you're going to use a room, you need to put a television in it. That's awful to say, but we do spend so much time watching television, along with all the productive things that we like to do. But having them both at the same end has been wonderful. I have not purchased that much for my house, but when I do see things I like, I get them. And I used to have several, but I'm down to just this one wonderful bird cage that's got a little painted and patina. And the bust next to that, my grandmother made, and that was down in her studio at her house across the street. And also the Remington Bronco Buster, that was my grandmother's. I do like to point out things like this. You can spend so much money on your house, but there are also things that you can do that don't cost that much. Those 2 lamps over there are from Home Goods. This lamp right here that I've had people say, where in the world did you get this? This is from Pier 1. So you don't have to necessarily spend a lot of money to make a house look look lived in and look good. Meet Pippa and Sophie. Pippa and Sophie. This is where they hang out almost all day long, and they are our pride and joy. We love them so much. And to be honest, I often have a cover on the sofas because, as you can imagine, these little terriers, they're Cairn terriers, they are outside digging in the wall and getting dirt on their paws all the time. So this is a special treat that they get to be on top of there without the cover. Everybody loves their dogs, and that's one of the most popular item I do. And I had to do pillows for mine, and I've got my Pippa pillow and my Sophie pillow. I love that I got my grandfather's oar that was in my dad's house for many years. As I said, he was on the crew at Yale, and this was evidently a big regatta, I think they called them. Yale versus Harvard. L. Gibson, number 5. Time, Yale 2041, Harvard 44, Harvard won. Oops. But anyway, it's neat to have that old oar right there. Hand me down from my grandmother, this wonderful watercolor of the mountains. Who knows where they are? This is a replica of my great-grandmother, Charles Dana Gibson. I think it's just a print, but I think it's very pretty. This is one of the first things I did when I was doing the digitizing of the learning to digitize. And this was the house I grew up on Three Top. It's a little faded, but that was the first house I did. This home is such a comfortable home for my husband and I, or when we have a whole group of people over, whether it's intimate friends. Actually, tonight I'm having 8 friends over for dinner, and we'll be in the dining room. We've had a really big party. Not that I throw a lot of parties, but the house has a wonderful work about it, and everybody does not hang out in the kitchen like most houses, and you will see why. The reason is the kitchen is the tiniest room in the house. But we've got a wonderful little garden over here. So it's nothing grand about this house, but I can sit in any part of this house, and whether I'm reading a book or answering an email, and it's just a comfortable house. I want to show you a little neat thing about this room is that we have a secret garden, and I've really had fun getting it going. Come here and see it. So here's a little secret garden, very small, you can see, and it's a shade garden for the most part. And I've had a good time getting little things to grow back here. I will say last spring we had a little open Garden Club of Virginia does a home tour, and I planted 200 tulips all throughout here. They came up 3 weeks early, so I had to pull every single one of them out and replant it. So it's kind of a mess now as everything's going away, but it's such a great little space with, again, collections. The trumpet player was my mother's. She purchased that in Maine many years ago. These crazy things right here, I think they're from the 1970s, were in my grandparents' down the road front hallway, and I had them all wrapped up in paper, and I pulled them out for that tour. So they're just kind of funky little things to hang on a cinder block wall. But just little angels and different things. I just love this little secret space. I get inspiration everywhere. Instagram is full of wonderful houses, rooms, all that kind of thing. Magazines, shelter magazines. I'll tell you, I have done Bloomsbury, which is a house over in England. It's actually the Bloomsbury group. The name of the house was Charleston. That's something I've been really inspired by. Duncan Grant and Vanessa, anyway, they were all painters, and they lived in this house, and they did this wonderful painting all over the walls, the woodworks, and I just love that. And I've actually replicated those designs into fabric. Another great person I'm inspired by is Kit Kemp. And Kit Kemp is an English interior designer, and she and her husband own the Ferndale hotels, and they're mainly in London, or I should say England, but there are two, and I think there's a third one, coming in Tribeca in New York. And she has the most wonderful, she collects craft, and she represents, well, not represents, in her hotels, she's got crafts of all kinds all over her hotels. Every single bedroom is different, every single living room, and they're just beautiful. And I didn't know it, but I saw a kitchen on her feed, Kit Kemp Design Thread, and it was a wonderful kitchen. It had these fabulous lanterns hanging from the ceiling and just colorful. I think what had happened is these cabinets had just been painted. So bright colors, oranges and blues, and I thought, this is wonderful. So I did that, and I recreated it as a piece of textile, and turns out it was hers, and I shared it, and they reached out to me, and they ended up doing a Meet the Maker design thread. I'm sorry, I think it's just called Meet the Maker, and they featured my art, which was kind of fun. She's definitely a big inspiration to me. So Kit Kemp and Charleston House. Let's head back inside. I told you this is not the best family house, and one of the reasons for that is the bedroom is right in the middle of the house. Come see my bedroom. It's really nothing special, but it is nice. We've got a wonderful view of the backyard. I've got family paintings here that are just special to me. My mom did this. It's a copy of a water lily. She did these little paintings from photographs similar to what I do. They're paintings of little memories of me with my two girls, and this was at my graduation. I won't show you much of my bathroom, but let me point out, I do occasionally do little monograms still when I have to. I don't like this as a W for us, so I did that for our bathroom. I picked up these chairs from Anthropology, well, off the internet. I ordered those recently because they're embroidery, and I thought they were fun, great colors. These are, of course, my pillows. They're somewhat old that are in there. Another Charles Dana Gibson right here of just unknown person, model, I should say. And my mom painted this watercolor right there. This is my grandmother and my youngest daughter by, oh God, I'm blanking, Barbara Sullivan, who's a great Richmond portrait painter. And then a place that we go up in Hot Springs, that's just a wonderful mountain scene that I did, and I really don't do many landscapes, which is why it's in my bedroom. You may have noticed I have a lot of lamps in this room. I don't like ceiling lamps, and we love the fan, and we have the adjustable mattresses so we can lay in bed and read at night and in the morning and look outside. It's just a very cozy room to spend time in. No TV. Don't like TVs in my bedroom. For me, a house has a soul when it's your own house. When you can look at any part of the house and see something that is yours and your family. I mean, obviously you can go out to any furniture store and purchase comfortable furniture, and that's, I mean, you got to do that, but you got to personalize it with your own things. The warmth of family items and family books, I mean, things like that warm your house up to make it your own. All right, let's go to my studio. Come on. We're going to the studio, but we love this little area with the fire pit. We have lovely times here. Oh, I told you that the Charles Dana Gibson plates came and they were broken. And so I have used them as a decorative feature around this pot. So I knew I'd find some place to have them. This is the Good Fairy, a good fairy. She was across the street at my grandmother's. My grandmother had a little wading pool, and the Good Fairy was there. And I don't know if you know much about fairies, but fairies are neither male or female. And so if you look at this fairy, from this side it's a little boy, and from the front and the other side, it's a little girl. So you can also see this from the bedroom, and I love looking at her every morning. And in the spring and summer, it's very pretty back here. It's not at all now, but let's go on up to my studio. Here we are in my studio. It's not very big, but I got a lot of stuff in here. I'm kind of a fabric hoarder, but if you look around, it's pretty organized. This is my machine. It's the third embroidery machine I've gotten. This is a piece I'm working on right now. I've got one section that needs to be done. It's all done in parts, but I kind of cleaned it up knowing you all would come. There's always more things to be snipped off. As you know, working with fabric, it frays a lot. It frays a lot. So this is Lyford Club, the Lyford Club down in the Bahamas. I wonder if I was really attracted to the brown walls with the white palm trees. I can't remember the name of the designer that just redid it. I should know that, but I will post that on Instagram and you will be able to see that. So this is where I spend a good part of the day. I love what I do. I just have such a good time creating and making, and again, it's just brought my whole life together, from interior design to sewing to figuring things out, and I just have had a really good time with it. There really is organization in this chaos. It's pretty much color-coded somewhat. It gets messed up some, but if you look, it's color-coded. It's also sorted by sizes, these all being the biggest. These are all tiny, not tiny, but typical memo samples that you use for interior design. Well, that's been cut, but I work with some pieces that are this small to pieces that are a little bit larger, and they all have the tags on them. Not that that matters, but we have, these are definitely memo samples that are, a lot are donated to me. They're all outdated, but it doesn't matter to me. I'm just going for the color. My color is like paint, but I get the color from the fabric. Right there, the name of my interior design business was Sally Smith Limited, and I got that sign made, and I have just kind of kept that there just as a memory of where I came from. My last name was Smith at one point, and Sally is a nickname for Sarah. My daughter that came, she's 8 years old now, but she's much younger than the business. Her name is Sally Smith, so that was kind of funny. But my husband and I, on our honeymoon, went to see a play called Me and My Gal in England, and the lead person was Sally Smith, and so I always liked that name. Home for me is walking in the door and having my little dogs run up to me and flip over for a belly rub, and then I can go sit in my room, plop my feet up at the end of the day, and enjoy a glass of wine with my husband.
Hello, Homeworthy, and welcome to my family home in India. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hello, I'm Peter Doskoli, a New York designer, and I've lived in India with my wife and daughters for many years. So we're sitting in our home in Delhi. I always, ever since I was a young boy, have been very attracted to color graphics, and ever since I can remember, I've been drawing and painting. And really, it was my love for art that led me to study textile design. I sort of stumbled into the fashion world just through my love of graphics and color. I studied textile design at the Fashion Institute of Technology in Manhattan, and then in the summer before my senior year, I had a job with a menswear designer, and they sent me to Delhi. So that was my first trip 40 years ago. I was 20 years old, and on that trip, of course, it was an exciting adventure. I was just struck by the art and the beauty of this ancient civilization. It was on that trip that I met some officials working for the Indian government in the Ministry of Textiles, and I later learned that textiles and handicrafts, handmade textiles, are hugely important in India because there are literally millions and tens of millions, perhaps hundreds of millions of people who get their livelihood from artisanal fabrics. So I was invited by the government. They said, go back to New York, finish your last year at FIT, and then come and work for us. So I did that, and I ended up working for 2 years for the Indian government, which was my very first job. And I've never recovered from the shock and awe of the beauty of this amazing civilization. Here we are in what we can call the atrium of the house. It's a double height space with a skylight at the top, and you can see these panels that line the upper wall. It's printed linen that's been hand embroidered, and we designed these in our workshops here in India. I love the idea of living in a cabinet of curiosity filled with mementos, memorabilia, natural history items, of course also family pictures, lots of books, so we can see artifacts all around the house. Let's walk to the living room now. In the living room, of course, you see this very strong color on the wall. India is all about color, and I think covering the wall with so much art, it's nice to have a strong background. All of the art here, it's a little bit high-low. There's nothing very precious, and really they're mementos and memorabilia that our family has collected from all around the world. There are a lot of tiles from Turkey, from Italy, from the south of Spain, even from China and Amalfi, where my family comes from in Italy. Also on the wall, as I said, it's a mix of a variety of things. We have some artwork from the children. So my daughter painted this camel. Of course, living in India, lots of camels. There are some miniatures of Mughal engravings that are hand-colored, a gouache from the Bay of Naples, near where my family set sail for the New World of New York. So it's a very rich, here's some painted porcelain tiles from China that I found in Shanghai. Some antique French chintz fabric. Of course, with our work in textiles, we're always working with antique fabrics. The banquettes are covered in velvet. And then we have this furniture from our upholstered furniture collection that we hand make here in India. And it's printed linen, and the print, as you can see, it's inspired by the amazing Kashmiri shawls that come, the paisley shawls of the Valley of Kashmir. The Mughals loved florals and loved rendering and weaving and printing floral motifs, often very stylized. Here on this sofa, we have a paisley shawl, a Jamava shawl, and it was a gift from a friend, and it adds to this sort of maximalist mix of patterns, of colors, of just sort of surrounding ourselves with the things that we love. This coffee table I found on the 26th Street Flea Market in Manhattan. There were a number of years where this parking lot on 6th Avenue and 26th Street was filled with dealers, and there were treasures coming from China. So this table, as you can see, the drawers go on both sides. And it's this beautiful coffee table, lacquered with some nice details on the drawers. The fabric on the windows is printed linen, again from our studio. And there are some antique textiles. A very traditional treatment in decoration in India are shamyanas, or tents. So you can see this interesting fabrics tenting the ceilings. We are often inspired by traditional textiles. And in India, once again, the inspiration from Kashmiri shawls and Kashmiri hand-painted paper mache. One of the challenges, or we can say the art of being a maximalist, is knowing how to create a melange or a mix of many different textures, colors, and patterns, and still have it work. And that's the art, that's the trick. You can make mistakes and things can clash. Sometimes clashing is nice, but, and it's hard to say how to do it. It's something that maybe it's instinctual or cultivated, but everything has a harmony. It holds together as a complete look, but it really is quite a broad range of influences. Again, part of the mix of objects and patterns, we can see here a bunch of Chinese figures. When I was traveling constantly all around the world to source fabrics, I found some interesting things in China. And of course, one of the inspirations is really this centuries-old, even millennium-old tradition of the Silk Route and this mixing of cultures that happened all the way from Japan and China straight through Central Asia, India being a huge part of that, and then ending in the Levant, in Aleppo and in present-day Syria, right up through Turkey to Europe. And much of our European idea of decoration comes from an amalgam of all of these influences. So we have China playing a strong part in my idea of decoration. Of course, we know the style of chinoiserie, which is a European sort of fantasy and idea of what the exotic East is. And that's part of what we enjoy recreating here in our home. Also on the table are these two glass lamps that I found in a flea market in East Hampton, out on Long Island. And the shades, these red shades, were made at Gracious Homes, which is a big decoration store on the Upper East Side. So being so far away from home, these are sort of links back to, if we do start to feel homesick, where we come from. The peacock feathers, part of the richness of the natural biodiversity in India, we have at Lal Koti wild peacocks. We hear them singing at night or as the sun rises and sets. And these feathers are feathers that we've found in the yard and collected over the years. And now if we walk over to this side of the living room, we can see, again, more tiles. These I found in an antique shop in Shanghai. There are also many sort of grand tour photographs from the late 19th and then the early 20th century of Italy, hand-colored. Here you can see, this is a fascinating object. It's a fly whisk, a traditional fly whisk we found in Calcutta last Christmas, and it's made of horsehair. and this would traditionally have been used to keep the flies away. The bar. If we get homesick, here's a painting of the Adirondack Mountains. And it's interesting in India, of course, entertaining, especially in North India. People love to party, they love to be social. And we see some social changes happening in the culture. The older generation has grown up drinking a lot of whiskey and I guess not unlike in the US. And the younger generation now, there's the whole world of wine opening up. There are wine makers in India, and wine and beer for the younger generation is often had. Some tribal paintings, the Worli paintings of India. Every room in India needs to have air conditioning, and it's always sort of unsightly. Most of the homes don't have central heating or air conditioning, so we have what are called splits. They're units that stick on the wall, and here we've created these what are called jali patterns. They're traditional Islamic, and this is a cut wood, pierced wood screen that we've created to mask that unsightly air conditioning. Lal Koti is the name of this home, and a koti is a small house in Hindi, and lal means red, so it's really the red house. And it's made of red sandstone, which is a very famous stone for building in North India. There's the famous Red Fort, the Jama Masjid, in the old city. So red sandstone, but the actual architecture is very modern. It's by a member of this very large extended royal family, and he's a practicing architect in Holland. He's a Dutch architect. So the house was created in the 1980s. It was built, and it's a very interesting use of the earth. They move it around, they create depressions and hills so that the front door is on the ground level, but it's raised, and then you come down some steps and you're again on the ground level on this backside of the house. And there's a beautiful fountain in the garden that's part of the family's heritage, and the fountain comes from a palace in the Punjab. So it's a heritage piece, probably from the 19th century, and it's bubbling away in the front garden. And that again it's bringing back this rich history of the art and culture of India. So the Red House, Lal Koti, as a farmhouse here in Delhi. I think mentally life can be hard, and when our surroundings comfort us or reinforce certain values, I really believe that inanimate objects can do that. So the home we see here is really filled with objects that have meaning for us and comfort us daily. And perhaps we can proceed to the dining room, which is set for dinner. You know, I think it was Diana Vreeland who talked about hot pink being the navy blue of India. So we thought to have a pink dining room, but it's not just straight pink, it's really pink mixing with red. Here you can see these dramatic tree of life panels that we've printed at our workshop here in India. And the table laid for dinner. Dishes are interesting. They're spode, and it's a reproduction of an earlier spode pattern, which was made in the 19th century. Of course, the table linens come from Dascoli, our brand. The richness of Indian craft, the embroidery, the block printing, hand weaving is what brought us originally to India, and it animates the fabrics that we create. And here again we see on the ceiling the shamiana, that tented treatment. And so all of these patterns inspired by traditional Indian textiles. Delhi being the capital of India, all of the embassies are here, and we end up becoming friends with many ambassadors and people who work in the embassies. So a typical dinner party could feature close Indian friends, some ambassadors, some people from the UN, maybe UNESCO, which we work with UNESCO with our textile revival work. And maybe from the kitchen, we might decide to serve either traditional Indian food with chapatis, the hot bread, with curries. Of course, when entertaining in India, you always have to know your guests, or at least ask them before they come if there are any dietary restrictions. So many people in India are vegetarians, and even there can be strict vegetarians without even garlic or onions. So it can be complicated. So what you're serving, and it can be quite diverse. We also love serving Italian food, pastas, and that's always a good solution for vegetarians as well. You can make great vegetable pastas. Having a sit-down dinner is often a challenge in Delhi because people are they're unruly. They do what they want. They come and they go. They'll come late. They'll leave. Maybe they have 2 other parties to go to in the evening. So you have to know your guests. And if you're planning a sit-down dinner, your guests need to know that it's a sit-down dinner that's timed. Also, a little bit like Spain, in North India, in Delhi, people eat very late. Also, another interesting sort of thing that happens is at a party, you'll arrive at a party, you'll have amazing snacks, that what are called snacks, but they're hot foods, oftentimes veg, non-veg, while you're drinking, and it can go on for 2 or 3 hours of people socializing, nibbling, having finger foods. And then, towards the end of the evening, the host will serve dinner. And then people eat and they say goodbye and go home, which is sort of a funny thing for me to have experienced and learned about. And dinner gets served so late that my wife and I ended up, we would eat before we would go out. And then I could never resist the delicious food that's served at like 11 o'clock at night. So I would end up having 2 dinners every time we would go out. But so those are some of the interesting things you learn about that are the cultural differences when you live in a different culture. When I came as a young man to work for the Indian government, it was at a moment when the government of India was projecting its culture and we can say soft power through a series of major museum exhibitions at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, at the Cooper Hewitt and the Smithsonian in Manhattan, in Washington, at the Louvre in Paris, at the Victoria and Albert Museum, and other museums also in St. Petersburg. It was called the Festival of India, and many curators and designers were enlisted to work on craft development for these exhibitions, and that's the world that I fell into. All those years ago, when I first came to India, I had the great good fortune of working with someone who was one of the major craft revivalists and people working with handmade textiles. His name was Martin Singh, and he was a prince from the royal house of Kapurthala in Punjab. And this family of whom my family and I stay in this house, Lal Koti, belongs to that family. And so there's a wonderful connection there with me personally, with someone who I consider like my guru. And this house is a farmhouse in South Delhi. And anyone who knows India knows that it can be very intense. It can be a very crowded place. The population is huge. And Delhi, I think, is a city with 27 million people in the whole metro area. So it's a very intense place to live. And living here at Lal Koti, it's like a sanctuary and a bit of countryside within the city of Delhi. So we have a wonderful garden, we have a great swimming pool, and we have a mango orchard in the back of the house. And that's how we came to be in this house, through these long-standing connections with this family. And now let's go to the TV room. All good American households have to have a TV room. And ours is a little bit special. Being here in India, of course, we love color. And here another strong yellow color on the walls. Once again, in keeping with that sort of maximalist theme, a little bit calmer here. We have a couple of nature studies, paintings of birds that a dear friend made. Some oriental decoration, these Chinese panels hanging on either side. Of course, symmetry is very important to me as a designer. The television, of course, and then this amazing tonka we found in Nepal, in Kathmandu. And it has the, I think, 367 images of Buddha. And it's linked, I think that's the number, and the number is linked with some mystical belief in that faith. And that's pretty much it here. More family photos. The textiles on the sofa are interesting. It's once again from our studio. Hand-printed silk satin on these bolsters with a chenille velvet and a printed linen with some velvet stripe. The flowers come from the local flower market, which would be another interesting tour for us to make. It's the wholesale market. We go very early in the morning, and it's quite a scene. It's a big bustling place, and they're selling both cut flowers the way we know them for people to use in their homes, but that's really the smaller part of what the market is selling. They're also selling marigold and other lotus flowers and significant flowers that are tied to worship and the temples and offerings made to the deities. So it's always a very interesting place to visit. And as we head to the downstairs guest bedroom, we're passing through this sort of entrance area with these cabinets that are upholstered in printed cotton from our office, and this beautiful Bessarabian carpet on the floor. Bessarabians are from Eastern Europe, and it's a flat weave, so it's like a kilim weave. And they're always characterized by having large floral motifs. So we're in the downstairs guest room, and as you can see, again, some artwork on the walls. These are some original drawings from the École des Beaux-Arts, the architecture school in Paris. Another gouache of the Bay of Naples, those architectural renderings. And then we see more of those 19th century grand tour photographs, this time of Venice, hand-colored in some very beautiful frames. And then here along this wall above the headboards are a series of watercolor illustrations that I had done after I met Cécile. And we have an interesting story. We met in India. We were both here on business trips. Cécile's family was also in textiles. And we met in Delhi. A friend introduced us. And the very next day after meeting, we went, Cécile had booked and was scheduled to go alone to Agra to visit the Taj Mahal. And I canceled my meetings for that day, and we went together. And the driver thought we were on our honeymoon because it's such a typical destination for newlyweds. And that's how sort of we had a very intense meeting, just 2 days, and then Cecile flew back to Paris. Shortly after that, she came to visit me in New York. I tried to dazzle her with the beauty of Manhattan. We went to the Rainbow Room in Rockefeller Center so that I could show her all of Manhattan over martinis. And then I went to visit her in Paris, and she brought me to a party with her friends, and everyone was coming up to me saying, you're that Indian guy. Because all they knew was that Cecile had gone to India and met some guy. So I'm that Indian guy. And then the rest is history. We embarked upon a year of what I call living dangerously. We would meet in exotic locales in Como, in Italy, in Marrakesh. And it was quite an intense year. And then we were married. And I jokingly say, Cecile married me thinking she was getting Manhattan, and she got Delhi. Because then my plans changed with work, and she agreed. She loves India. And of course, that's now old history and happily ever after and all of that. The watercolors are, it's a bit of a story. And actually, Cecile already had a daughter, Clara, and this was and she was only 4 years old. And this was actually a story to Clara, explaining how her mother and I had met. We shifted to this house in the first lockdown during COVID, and living here, it's really the peace and quiet. India is a remarkable place for nature. It's one of the richest countries in the world for biodiversity. And the birds that are at this home, we have wild peacocks that we hear in the night, in the morning at dawn. The birds are really astonishing. There's a lot of fruit trees. So even though we're in the city of Delhi, it's the nature and the peace and the quiet that we most love. It's like a little sanctuary in the city. My wife and I, despite the fact that I'm an American from New York, I've been abroad for so many years. And my family is of Italian origins, and my wife's family also is very Mediterranean. She's French, and her family also comes from Istanbul, Turkey. And being European and Mediterranean is very much a part of our identity. So living in this home, it's really the accumulation of objects over our lifetimes, and each object sort of tells a story about a place, about a moment in time. And this arc of education in any individual life is something that's very important. If you're curious, if you're always learning. And for me and my life, I wasn't really born with a huge exposure to aesthetics and art, and it's something that I really had to learn over many years. So it's my studies in decorative arts, in European art, and in the arts of many diverse cultures from all over the world that informs the decoration of this house. I mean, I'm a designer, and I design textiles and products for interior decoration and fashion. So it sort of makes sense that our home would be a manifestation of those aesthetics that we love as a family and that are important to me. I think there are a few important inspirations in my life aesthetically. There are a couple of major designers. Renzo Mongiardino was an Italian set designer, costume designer, and created amazing ambiances and interiors for his clients. And then a woman in Paris named Madeleine Castin. So these were two huge influences on me aesthetically. and sort of we can see traces of their style in this house. And then, of course, one tries to develop one's own point of view. So really, it's the artifacts. And I believe that, you know, creating a home, you should have things that are familiar and meaningful to you. Even if you're working with a professional designer, I think it's important to have that communication back and forth. And a good designer is going to create an environment for you that touches you personally. Shall we go and explore upstairs? On the stairs leading to the mezzanine section, we have some artifacts here. This beloved, one of my heroes is Theodore Roosevelt, and his philosophy of life and engaging and a life of doing and action. So that's a bronze I found again out in a junk shop in East Hampton. These are some Chinese funeral stone sculptures. And then again, this idea of things that are new but are reproductions. This is the head of a Roman boy from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And then this is a very heavy marble head of Alexander the Great that we found in the Archaeological Museum in Istanbul and lugged it all the way back. Then here are 3 panels, printed raw silk, hand-woven, with some hand embroidery in, of course, a Greek theme. And in our work, we're always using antique documents, history, and books are very important. So there's a small library here of reference books. Books on interiors, books on all the major textile collections in the Victoria and Albert, the Museum of Decorative Arts in Paris, and a variety of inspirations. On the floor, we have an interesting Samarkand carpet from Central Asia. And this, you can see, it looks very oriental. And the chairs are covered in a jacquard that I did many years ago when I was in New York. It's woven in Como, in Italy. So here we are in the mezzanine above that double height atrium area with the embroidered panels surrounding. And this is the master bedroom. Let's have a look. And for the master bedroom, the idea was to create like a cocoon wrapped in fabric. As you can see, the idea, which is a traditional French decorative treatment, is to take one fabric and cover all the walls, sometimes even the ceiling. Here, the ceiling is not covered. But you can see we took this very complex striped fabric that we created in the studio and covered the walls. We put this little molding around at the ceiling level, just below. We printed that engineered border to follow that wood, and then beneath it we draped the fabric. So it creates a wonderfully warm feeling that you really feel like you're I mean, it's a fairly big room, but you sort of feel like you're in a boat or in a tent with all of the fabric surrounding you. And it's a mix of Indian-inspired, but also European, with the classic florals, the very realistic floral stripe, mixing with that very small stripe, and then with this paisley print. Obviously, taste is completely up to the individual, and some people are devoted to minimalism, and I get it. I understand that aesthetic. It's pure simplicity, and you can say that it reflects your mind also, a simplicity of mind or spirit. I love the excitement of decoration, of pattern, and for me, I'd rather be in a stimulating environment with interesting shapes and forms and colors rather than a simply bare space. But I understand it, I get it, and I can get into simplicity as well. Of course, with simplicity, the bones of the space become even more important. So maybe if you have some monumental architecture or the integrity of the raw materials, whether it's stone or wood, then minimalism is possible. Here, with maximalism or with lots of things happening decoratively, it can cover a lot of shortcomings in a space. And there are many shortcomings in this home. But so those are my feelings about simplicity, minimalism, and maximalism. But in the end, I love the excitement of the association also of motifs. It's like a trigger of history for the imagination. I love history. I love reading history. And for me, the history of decorative arts, of civilization itself, of how humans have created over the thousands of years layers of culture. For me, that's interesting. And that's why I love India so much, and why my work with decorative arts and textiles keeps me enthused, because it's always a discovery. And I'm not the type of designer that's trying to create something that you look at it and you think, I've never seen that before. I love the idea of the links with history and progression and an incremental change. I guess I'm sort of conservative in that way. An interesting anecdote about this rug is I was working in Manhattan, right on Madison Square Park on 26th Street, and I left the office to go for lunch, I think, and there was a man standing on the sidewalk looking a little nervous, and he had rolled up a carpet, and I did a double take because I'm always interested in carpets, and he asked me if I wanted to buy the carpet. And I said, no, you know, someone in New York City, you don't want to really engage. And then he said, just $200. And I said, I would love to. He showed it to me. It looked very beautiful. And I said, I don't have $200. He said, there's an ATM right there. So I went and got it, and I bought it. And then years later, I brought it to be cleaned. This is the carpet here in India with 3 other Afghani carpets. And the dealer who was doing the cleaning for me asked if I would sell this. And he said it's a special carpet. So I was very pleased about that. And I always wondered about that man, who he was, why he needed the money so badly. And that's the anecdote about this carpet. These stools are covered in a beautiful silk satin that's dyed red, and then it's hand embroidered. So the fineness of this embroidery is quite remarkable, and it's a nice accent to the blue bed and the canopies. So here we are in the front garden at Lal Koti, and really this is Rani Saab's property. It's her garden. She's planted all of these amazing trees. We have fruit trees, a mango orchard in the back, which we'll see in a little bit. And this fountain from one of the palaces of the family in Punjab. And it's just a delight to be here. It's like a sanctuary in the intense city of New Delhi. So we have a great variety of trees, and we have gardeners who take care of it. As you can see, the maintenance is quite strenuous. And well, some of them are flowers, some of them are fruit trees, these exotic palm trees. For me, it's just a delight. The birds that come and sing, we have the wild peacocks, and this glorious fountain. Sometimes we entertain, we set tables on the lawn. Of course, in winter, it's an amazing place to sit in the sun. And this remarkable house The house is made of the very traditional material of red sandstone, which in North India, many of the monuments are made, the great forts and tombs of the Mughals, certainly. Of course, the Taj Mahal is white marble, but other than that, red sandstone really is used quite a bit. And this depression, it's almost like an amphitheater, as you can see, with steps on on three sides: the front, which is the north, the west, and the east. So this is the front yard of Lal Koti. It's a sanctuary here. We have that front garden with the fountain, the house, a swimming pool behind this hedge, and then what's like a remarkable country road in the city of New Delhi, and a mango orchard on the other side of this hedge. Sometimes we can set a table amidst the trees and have lunch, so let's go check that out. So here we are at the mango orchard at Lal Koti. I always think it's a little bit like an enchanted garden, and in the heat of the day, to be beneath the trees, this cluster of fruit trees here, we have a table set for lunch. It's just a fantasy. You know, mangoes in India hold a very special place in the culture. I think there's something like 32 different varieties. And growing up on Long Island in New York, we don't know anything about mangoes. Here, there are the specialists, both the growers and the consumers. Some mangoes are soft and juicy and sweet, and some are firm and sour and katak. And sometimes they're cooked, a lot of times they're eaten raw. And it's fascinating. Once I was at a dinner at a friend's home in Gujarat, and they served this amazing mango puree, and it was just this light, fluffy orange delight. So here we are in the mango orchard. The table is set with one of our new table linen collections. The tablecloth, of course, this is a chinoiserie theme based on the Orient and China. The tablecloth is printed linen, a design made of pagodas and different cherry blossoms. The placemats are a traditional Chinese geometric pattern, and we have some hand embroidery. Of course, the crafts of India are super famous and quite diverse, and these are hand embroidered with these knots, creating the center of the flowers. And this napkin, all of our napkins, and in fact our cotton dresses, are made of hand-spun, hand-woven cotton. And it's remarkable. I call them like a cultural artifact, because this cotton is grown on small family farms in India, and then the plant is spun by hand and then woven by hand. So it's really like a pre-industrial agrarian ecosystem that these products come out of. And I'm always talking about the sustainability of Indian craft and how much India can offer the world regarding the fashion industry. The dishes are Wedgwood, and it's another story behind these. It's a pattern that when Napoleon was defeated by Britain and exiled to the island of St. Helena, he ate from these Wedgwood plates of this pattern. So this is called Napoleon ivy. And it's quite a sort of historic setting. And here we are in the mango orchard. What does home mean to me? You know, my parents, my grandparents left southern Italy and came to New York. It's that classic immigrant story, being processed through Ellis Island and settling in Brooklyn. My wife's family are Sephardic Jews who, of course, 500 years ago left Spain and were welcomed by the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire in Istanbul. So we're very Mediterranean, but we're also used to, at least our genetics and our family, are used to traveling, and whether it's for economic reasons or political reasons, making a home in a place that is not necessarily your community's home or an environment that you've been in for generations. And we've taken some of that sensibility with us here, settling and living for so many years in India. Firstly, I think to do that, you have to be somewhat secure with your own identity. As an individual and standing, it takes some strength to remain who you are, but it also requires, I think, a love for humanity and for people and a curiosity to learn. So it's not very easy as a foreigner to live in India. As I said, it's such a different culture, and yet our friends that we have here, we've experienced love, friendship, life and the birth of loved ones, the death of loved ones, and this is so, it's this human experience. How do we do it? I think we're very much at home in India, and that requires a certain amount of, I think, mental flexibility, psychological maturity, and also love for people and differences. You know, when I first came to India, it was an adventure. I was excited to be here. And it wasn't until years later that I realized that some people, they come to India and they hate it. That surprised me, because the whole idea of wanting to stay where you are in the world that you know, I understand the appeal of that. But to not be curious, to not be open to things, the mystery of life outside of what you know, is something that astonishes me. And I think that's what home for me really ends up being, where I am and where, of course, my loved ones are, where my family is. But I want to be open. I want to experience the unknown. I'm comforted by those things that are familiar to me, but the idea of adventure. So where is home? Home for me and for my family, I think, is wherever we happen to be. So New York will always be home. I love America. My wife, and now I'm very much European, and my wife's family is in Paris, and home for us is Paris. We have a beautiful home in Bordeaux, and India. Our loved ones are here, our close friends are here. And I think really that says something about the age that we live in, with communications being so easy, that home ends up being really someplace inside. You know, there's that amazing quote that says something about, if you would travel to the Indies to discover the wealth of the Indies, you must bring it with you. And I think that's something very important. I think home for me is something internal, it's interior, with family, but it's something that you carry with you.
Thanks for watching.